Number one, you don't have enough vocabulary. Number two, your pronunciation does not sound natural. Number three, you struggle to hold conversations. And number four, because you mess up little things like gender of nouns and adjectives or prepositions, little things like that. Hola amigos, Sean, brand ambassador with Spanish55 here. In este video, I'm going to talk to you about 4 reasons why your Spanish is not as good as you would like it to be. Now, this is the first part of a new series, okay? So stay tuned, we got more episodes coming. A new series on how to take your Spanish as close as possible to nivel nativo, to a native level. This is something that I'm super passionate about just because as someone who's kind of, I guess, a lifelong learner of Spanish, but not quite. Since I started when I was an adult, I'm very passionate about getting closer and closer to sounding just truly like a native speaker. It's something I always said that I don't think is quite possible, but I keep striving to get closer and closer. And every now and then I fool some people and they think that I'm a native speaker. But this is about you. And los 4 motivos por los cuales tú todavía no puedes hablar español tan bien como quieras. ¿Listo? All right, let's talk about problema número 1. Problem number 1 is that you need to increase your vocabulary. Now, the best way to do this, especially when you reach a certain level and you already have like a basic understanding and some basic vocab, is just start exposing yourself to a lot more Spanish, particularly read articles, read books, write down the words that you don't know, look them up, keep adding vocabulary this way. Now, pro tip here is to make sure that you always practice your new vocabulary in a complete sentence, right? Because then when we practice in a complete sentence, number one, we memorize it faster and it just makes more sense. We're improving our fluency at the same time. We're actually speaking. Another great way to improve your vocabulary is synonyms, synonyms, all right? Practice thinking of synonyms for some of these like more simple words, but then there might be synonyms that you can use that are a little bit like higher level vocabulary. Let me give you a couple examples. Like let's take a simple word like hacer. Hacer is the verb like to do or to make. Now, we can use hacer. We could stop there and we can be conversational with that. But we might use some other words that are a little bit more like elaborative, professional sounding, right? Elaborar, producir, realizar. There's a lot of different ways that you can say something similar to hacer that sounds a little bit bigger and increases your vocabulary. This is just one example. Okay, problema número 2 is pronunciation, pronunciación. It's a tough one, but not that tough, okay? Now, a big part of the reason you probably don't sound that natural when you pronounce things in Spanish is because you're not using the correct muletillas. And you're like, what the heck is a muletilla? Okay, so now the word muleta or muletas means crutches, like when you're injured. But muletillas in this case are like the little filler words. Think of it as a little crutch that people use to like fill some silence. How many times do you say things like, I mean, okay, so, all right, so, right. Anyway, like those little words, all of these little words that all native speakers use in every language just to sound more natural. In Spanish, some good ones, for example, are, bueno, pues, o sea, and I'm trying not to sound like a total like fresa, right? Like that's someone like from La Ciudad de Mexico, like from Mexico City, be like, o sea, bueno, yo no, I'm not trying to like sound like that, but these are just good, like, these are good filler words that you can use to sound more natural with your language. Now, pronunciation in general, you can improve a lot just by practicing repeating what native speakers say. This is where I love like singing, right? This is where I love falling in love with music in Spanish. By the way, check out the link below if you missed that video, how to fall in love with Spanish music. It's a great way to improve your language skills, but also just sing along, You're going to get the intonation, you're going to get pronunciation, you get everything and you enjoy it when you sing along to a song to practice your pronunciation. Now, we're going to have a whole other episode very soon, stay tuned, on how to improve your pronunciation, how to get your pronunciation as close to native as possible with some really more high-level tips, how to go in depth on it. So stay tuned for that. Spoiler alert, big tip for pronunciation is just really make sure you slow it down at the beginning when you're practicing the pronunciation of a new word. But I'll get more into that next episode. Okay, problema número 3 is the conversation piece. Yes, unfortunately, if you want to speak Spanish really fluently, you're going to have conversation.
There's no way around it.
Now, the good news, or maybe the bad news, depending on how you look at it, is that the first part is where you get to just pretend to be like a crazy person and you talk to yourself. See, this is good news because when you talk to yourself, nobody's judging you unless you're like doing it in a public place and then the people are judging you. But you get my point. So the pro of practicing by yourself, speaking Spanish out loud, is because if you do it like in a quiet place and nobody's around you or whatever at your house, then no one's judging you. Now, The con is just because you kind of feel stupid and weird and crazy, but trust me, this is how we improve. Now, at this point in 2024, I probably shouldn't have to give you that many tips on how to find ways to have conversations in Spanish. You can do it digitally, pretty much. I mean, if you live in the US like I do, there is not even a small town. I mean, you'd have to basically live under a rock to not find anyone to practice your Spanish with. Now, if you don't want to get out of your house, you can do it online. There's lots of different ways to do that as well, okay? But find someone somewhere to practice with. It's really a matter of just gaining more and more confidence speaking, más y más confianza. We actually did a video about just how to ganar confianza, how to tener más confianza, just gain more confidence a few years back. You can check that out as well. Okay, problema número 4, problem number 4, and the last one we're going to talk about is those little things, right? Like masculine versus feminine, or like prepositions, little mistakes you make with those little words. Think of this like a sport. Have you ever played a sport where you have like, you developed a bad habit? You know, maybe like you're playing baseball, and when you're swinging the baseball bat, I'm not that good at baseball, but you've developed like some bad mechanics over time. Or if you're boxing, I'm definitely bad at boxing. You know, like if you've developed a poor jab over time, it really becomes hard to correct it. Like it's harder for a teacher to correct someone who's been doing it a technically wrong way for a long time versus someone who's been doing it, you know, hasn't been doing it and is just starting, but it's easier to just do things correctly. So like correcting the bad habits after a while becomes really tough. And sometimes we have to do that with little things in Spanish, for example. Like, oh yeah, I've always been screwing up the masculine versus feminine here, or always been using the wrong preposition here. And prepositions are just these little words, you know, like en, con, por. I mean, we could do episode after episode on por versus para. We do have one of those. Check that out in the link below as well. I mean, of the 4 things, this is the one that I still struggle with the most nowadays. But like I said, it's just a matter of just being aware of when you're making little mistakes. And once you're aware of it, it takes some time to really, like, every time you're speaking, you approach that word or that preposition that you're messing up, like consciously think to yourself, wait, and then do the right one, okay? And like I said, this is like, for me, there's a couple little areas on my personal journey where I still haven't reached that like totally bilingual native level. And this is definitely one of them. But anyway, we'll talk more about those in the next 3 or 4 videos. Bueno, sí, muletilla. Bueno, pues eso es todo por el video de hoy. That is all for today's video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Remember to stay tuned because the next video that I'm going to be on, we are going to take a deep dive in how to improve your pronunciation, all right? Big important topic. And by the way, yes, you can improve your pronunciation if you've started learning Spanish at age 20 or 30 or 40 or even 50. They say sometimes that kids are the only ones that can learn correct pronunciation. No, you can improve yours and get to a native, if not near native level, if not native. All right, so stay tuned for that. Be sure to check out those links below. Like I mentioned, check out Spanish55.com where you can find the best Spanish-speaking tutors on the internet. Hasta pronto. Hablaremos otra vez en el próximo episodio.